Good Wednesday, everybody here on the South Side. Welcome to the South Side Beat. My name is Chris Halicke. I'm going to kick lead things off here solo because Corey is, working on the South Side. So, but happy hump day, everybody. Happy Wednesday. James is already coming in, man, saying come in, hit the like button. Yes, hit like, subscribe, hit everything you possibly can for your support. We really appreciate it. Even just you being here, whether you're watching here live on YouTube or whether you, listen back later on. We really appreciate it, guys. Like for real, all the support you guys give, we appreciate it a lot. Corey, like I said, will be joining as soon as he can. He actually just texted me saying 3:15. So it looks like you guys are in the co-host chair for the next 14 minutes. So enjoy it. Let's chat here a bit today. Frank, appreciate you guys do a really good job remembering like the other things we talk about outside of football. Frank asks, how's the ankle? I actually kind of wish it were the ankle. It's actually the inside of my foot. It's like mid-foot. Swan coming in saying low res at 3:15. Yeah. So we'll see. Since he might have some time to try to get it get it figured out where it's like okay quality, Corey. But no, the foot's it's better. I can at least put weight on it. I was not able to do that yesterday for most of the day. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Fortunately, no fractures. So Jim says mid-tarsal like Najee. I'm honestly not sure which exact bone it is. I would assume it's just one of the bigger bones in the mid-foot region because it was a direct shot on a slapper. Coming from the guy who, by the way, who has the hardest slapper in the league, and I was a good 5 feet away from it whenever he released it. So it was a direct shot. It was not it didn't feel good. So no, I wish high ankle sprain. I've had ankle sprains. I mean, I grew up playing football, playing soccer, playing a number of sports. I've had my ankle sprained. I don't know how many times. I've had a couple of high ankle sprains as as much as those aren't fun to deal with. None of them had ever left me in crutches. And this one had me in crutches. Ryan said, "Good block." Yeah, I do pride myself on that. Whether I'm playing forward or defense, I like to block shots. Playing out there for 10 years, blocked a lot of shots, gotten plenty of really gigantic bruises on my legs because of blocking shots. I've never been hit directly in the bone with a bruise here. But to get on to some actual football talk, Matthew brings up a really, really big news thing from today. Watson out for the year. Yes. Deshaun Watson gone. Played apparently Lyle asked you to get a block shot bonus. No, I wish. No, you don't. Goals and assists are the only stats you get there. But yeah, no, Deshaun Watson out for the year. That's a big deal, man. That's a huge deal. I understand like there's like this whole thing of being like, oh, well, I'd rather take on the starter than take on the backup and so on and so forth. And listen, I get that. I understand it. But at the same time, Deshaun Watson can hurt you. And he made some plays, in the first game, earlier this season. So listen, I think this is a big deal. I mean, Cleveland's now lost Nick Chubb and they've lost now Deshaun Watson. These are big injuries, and this is a Browns team that's 6-3 for a reason. They're a good football team. Anybody going into the season thinking these were going to be the same old Browns, they're not. And I understand, there's going to be comments like this where Beefield, says money well spent, Cleveland. And listen, Deshaun Watson's been good for them whenever he's been playing, but obviously the questions of his availability have been there. Obviously, off the field issues were the big thing. Yes, I can make a lot of jokes about that, but I'm not going to. But off the field issues kept him out for I think it was 12 games last year, something like that. And then obviously injuries are limiting his season this year. And so, I understand, it's easy to take a shot there. And honestly, it's also understandable because it's what, $91 million or whatever it is. I don't remember the exact, a lot of money guaranteed to Deshaun Watson, over this time. I want to say 91 million. I think over this time that he's been the quarterback thus far, not including the money that he's still owed. But yeah, it's and Swan 269 says this is the worst thing that you could have happen to the Browns. And like for real, like if you commit that kind of money, you better be sure that it's being spent right, and listen, we could all criticize Cleveland, but I mean, the fact of the matter is that even with all of that, even with the whole Deshaun Watson giving him too much money, despite all the other stuff going on, now he's out for the year with an injury. They're still a really good football team. They just are. Their defense is really good. I mean, that they have kind of put all of those concerns that I talked about earlier this season about like the interior of their defense and everything. They put a lot of that stuff to bed. They are a good football team. I'll have more in my next opponent piece on DKPittsburghSports.com when that comes out. But for right now, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR, he's going to be the guy who takes over for right now. That was announced. And so, listen, that's who the Steelers have to deal with. Obviously, it's not Deshaun Watson. But that's who the Browns have. And so I do think, though, that no matter what the Browns have at quarterback, it could be, we kind of saw it last year. Remember when the Steelers played the Browns last year? Obviously, the first game, it wasn't Deshaun Watson because that's when he was suspended. But Bob says that Browns D is good, but can't stop Boswell. Yeah, but they can stop Boswell if they're going to make him try 70 and 80-yard field goals, which obviously Mike Tomlin's not going to put him out there for. So Steelers got to get in field goal range first. And so we obviously saw what Jacoby Brissett did, and that's actually the game the Browns won. Now, granted, that was before Kenny Pickett started playing, and that was before the Steelers figured things out on the offensive line. It was early in the season. They weren't running the ball well. Hold on a second. Just to clear this up, Mr. Malvo BKAR2 says, "Are you sure?" I just seen PJ Walker was going to step in on another pod. No. From what it's been reported everywhere, and I think it was actually announced by the Browns that DTR was starting. So, but no matter, the whole point is, no matter who the Browns have at quarterback, they're going to run the football. Like that's just how the Browns are built. And they're built that way for a reason. And it's good on the Browns to build themselves in a way where when their starting quarterback goes down, the system doesn't crumble, right? It's not like they're bringing somebody else. It's the same thing with the Ravens. When Lamar Jackson can't play because of injury, they have somebody else who can play a similar style, right? A similar style that can come in and keep the system in place, keep it intact. The Browns are going to do the same thing. They're going to try to run the ball. They have a great offensive line. They want to control the clock. And if they can run the ball, then by all means, they have a chance to win. And Aquatic Life really brings us up. And that's kind of where, regardless of what happens at quarterback, Aquatic Life says, intriguing what this Browns run defense will do versus this version of the Steelers run game. I think that's honestly the thing to watch for in this game. I haven't, dug wholly deep into this matchup yet. That's kind of what I do on like Tuesday and Wednesday primarily. And then, when next opponent comes out, you end up seeing my full breakdown on it. But listen, like this is, in my opinion, just on the surface, the matchup to watch. Right? The Steelers are running the ball much better now. Over the past 2 weeks, it's been performances of 165 yards and 205 yards on the ground by the Steelers. That's big boy football, right? That's running the ball really, really well. And so how are the Steelers going to be able to do that against a Browns team that is great across the board, right? I understand they gave up 31 points against the Ravens. Well, I mean, so the Ravens are also terrorizing everybody going into last week. They just been they've been one of the best teams in football, and the Browns, even with that, were able to stop them. Stop them enough. You can give up 31 points and still have your defense make plays when they need to be made, right? So I still think this is a tough matchup, regardless of who's at quarterback. Let's see here. Oh boy. Mr. Nick of Time asks, Chris, do you know much about Michael Walker, the linebacker from Atlanta? How does he compare to Mark Robinson? Very, very different. Mark Robinson is a what's the best way to he's a downhill, just let him off the leash and he's just gonna run after him like a Rottweiler. But sometimes it's not always he's a heat-seeking missile, but it's not always a guided heat-seeking missile, while Michael Walker is way more athletic, can do more in pass coverage. He can, obviously step up. He's a linebacker, so he can still step up and defend the run. But there's some, Ryan points it out, there's some decent highlights, but it's not anything that's going to be like, oh my gosh, like this guy's going to come in and be, Quan Alexander, or be Cole Holcomb. If that were the case, he wouldn't have just been able to be on the Steelers practice squad, right? But Mark Robinson's obviously going to be more of I think this is really going to challenge Landon Roberts to kind of be more of the every down, the 3-down linebacker, while Mark Robinson be more of the run stuffer kind of guy. And honestly, it's a good week, for Mark Robinson to get his feet wet, because the Browns are going to want to run the football. Let's see. Brent asks, how much is Sullivan to be blamed for lack of Kenny Pickett developing the way we want him to? I don't know, man. I don't think. Again, whenever you talk about a quarterback not developing, hold on, before we can really get to that, we have a new guest here.
Hello.
On the Outside Beat.
Hello.
I don't want to say guest. It's my co-host, Corey Kristen. What's going on, man?
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. We can hear you. Can you hear me?
Come in, Star Command. Buzz Lightyear to Star Command.
Can you hear me?
Here.
Okay,
I got
cool.
You loud and clear. Yeah,
okay.
Okay.
All right.
Hello.
So this question, I was in the middle of answering this question, but honestly, just to kind of sum up, it's really ultimately everybody plays a role in that. Kenny plays a role in that. Mike Sullivan plays a role in that. Matt Canada plays a role in that. It's all everybody. But ultimately, I always put most of the stuff on the player. The player's got to go out there and make plays. He knows what he's got to do. You got to do it. Having if you're relying on a coach to be the guy who kind of holds his hand along the way, that's more on the player. But Corey,
sure.
What happened on the South Side today?
What didn't happen?
Oh no!
I'm just kidding. Not a bad day today. Real quick before we get to Kenny Pickett, Pat Freiermuth said we'll see how this week goes as it pertains to whether he's going to play Sunday or not.
Yeah.
Right after practice, the scrum happens. Kenny Pickett's in there. And then Pat Freiermuth was nice enough to give some time. And basically what you need to know about what he had to say was, we will see how he feels come Sunday. Now, the 21-day window is open. So within the next 21 days, he'll be eligible to come off of IR, but it's definitely going to be sooner than that. By all indications, there was a minor setback with that hamstring, which is why he landed on IR. But all indications are pointing that there's going to be at least a chance for him to play this weekend. Swan asked about Minka. Yeah. No Minka Fitzpatrick after practice today in the locker room. We didn't talk to him, so I can't disclose anything. So the injury report will have to dictate basically Minka Fitzpatrick today. And then if he talks this week, that'd be great. But we can't force the guy to do interviews or stay by his locker or anything like that. Yeah. So, I mean, Chris knows how this goes.
And maybe he wasn't there because he was getting treatment in the or on the table. He could be, there's a number of reasons why he couldn't be in the locker room. So
sure. Yeah. It could be a million different things, but
yeah.
No, the talkers after practice today, Alandon Roberts spoke, but I was off doing some other stuff. But Kenny Pickett, Pat Freiermuth, we spoke to Deontay Johnson before practice, but no, we didn't. Yes, I did say scrum. That is the term for it, Mark, the media scrum. That is when you see a horde of cameras and people and reporters just like
scrum
like that over the top of a player or whoever it is. That's called a scrum. That is, and sometimes like, okay, scrum is a rugby term. Like, I'm not going to get too into the meat and potatoes of why, but basically it's a pile to get the ball. Okay.
I think anybody who's watched Friends and knows about Red Ross probably knows that too.
Yes. Sometimes in those piles, you do come up a little banged up. I mean, Chris can attest to this. There's been times I've been in those media scrums and I got a TV camera jabbing my back and I'm like contorted like this, trying to get an angle.
The worst one is when you don't have a good position at the beginning. You're kind of joining at the last second. And just to get a video on your phone, you're like reaching up over the top.
Or you're like this.
Yeah, and you're having to do that for...
You're holding your phone like this.
You're having to do
that.
Today
I was kind of like this. I was kind of chilling.
7 or 8 minutes.
Ryan says this hoodie looks better than the Syracuse orange. Ryan, respectfully disagree because that's you inferring that this Carolina blue style hoodie is better than my orange, which is completely false. Completely false. No sour grapes.
Mike, I would never, ever.
No. If you do that to scrum, you will get called out for it.
There's not just that. I mean, there's a party foul, and then there's that.
You will get called out. Ben says, good question, Corey. Kenny looked a little frazzled, just me. Now, I did ask Kenny the question about Mike Tomlin. I said, hey, listen, Mike Tomlin said you got to play better. And I said, I did interrupt myself. I said he worded it more eloquently, but, what do you think about that when your coach lays down the law like that? And he's like, to paraphrase it, he's like, yeah, I'm always trying to do that, right? So he kind of made up for it, but it's no question that he took that as a challenge. Like anybody would take that as a challenge. When your head coach or your boss or your mentor or manager, whoever says that about you, you would take that as a challenge. So, Kenny didn't really brush it off per se, but he also didn't say, hell yeah, man, I need to play better. I'm taking that challenge on or anything like that. He was kind of neutral about that answer.
Well, and honestly, that doesn't surprise me because, Kenny doesn't need to be competitive in the media scrums. Kenny needs to be competitive on the field. And the thing is that he knows that.
Yeah.
He knows. I mean, Kenny's a competitive guy. I don't think anybody who watches the game or watches anything, who has watched Kenny play, even going back to his Pitt days, needs to understand that Steeler 7 girl. I disagree wholeheartedly that Kenny is Kenny to grow up. He absolutely does take accountability.
Sometimes he uses we language, which some people might misinterpret as not me language, but I think he does okay with that.
No, he does. No, I don't think that at all. I do think that he knows he's got to play better.
Thanks, Phil. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you can't play the way you've been playing. With that's including the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. And even if you are playing like Patrick Mahomes MVP level, you should still never settle. At least that's my philosophy in anything that I do, whether it's playing a sport or doing my job or being a father, being a husband, whatever it is. I'm always looking to get better, and you always have to be looking to get better at everything that you do. That should be your mentality. And I think Kenny is of that kind of mentality, that he's always looking to get better, that he doesn't think that that the way he's playing right now is going to just suffice for his entire NFL career. I don't think he thinks that.
Both of these statements can be true. Wins are all that matters. Kenny Pickett needs to play better. Both of those statements can be true at the same time. Yeah. And yes, the Steelers are 6-3. They're winning football games, like sometimes in spite of Kenny Pickett. Big Hurt says it right here. Kenny made me forget about Canada. Like, we've not absolved Matt Canada. We as in the public general, the public general sense. Matt Canada's not absolved from everything. That's not what we're saying. And Brent, thank you for the 5 gifted. We greatly appreciate that. If you got one of those from Brent, make sure you say thank you. And
turn your username green. If you're in the live chat and your name it in green, take one of those 5 memberships real quick. Make
sure you drop a thank you.
Yes.
Those are not one and the same. the Steelers want to win football games, yes, but also Kenny Pickett has to play better. Those are two different statements. Now, I'm not saying like Matt Canada has absolved all of his problems. I'm not saying that, everything's fixed with this offense because they ran for a season-high yards for the second consecutive week. You'll see more on DKPittsburghSports.com, probably around 4:30, about an hour after I get off of here, just about what the Steelers are doing offensively in terms of like building off of that success from the running game. They are not getting as many explosive pass plays as one might think, even though they're getting explosive running plays. And look at the pass chart from Sunday. He did not attempt, forget about complete. He did not attempt a pass in between the hashes. Attempt. And he only attempted a few in between the numbers. So a lot of the stuff is going to the boundary. Now, what does that mean going forward against the Cleveland Browns? I'm not so sure, because the Browns can stop you just about any level at any time.
Yeah.
And this is going to be the toughest test Kenny Pickett has. And there's not much to glean from film. You might think, well, the Steelers have seen the Browns once this year. Like they can, learn what they did from week 2. That's not necessarily the case. That was 2 months ago. By the time Sunday's game runs around, it'll be 2 months and a day to the date the last time the Steelers saw the Browns. So those are two completely different football teams. Of course, the Steelers didn't have Deontay Johnson. Pat Freiermuth's status is still uncertain. There was a lot more uncertainty with this offense back then than there is now. But Kenny Pickett's play has to be elevated for a sustainable product to come to the field. And look, that's even despite the improvements the offensive coordinator has made. But when you add in the deficiencies that he still brings.
Yeah. Kind of a good point here that was brought up. That's Bied said Canada isn't absolved, but if Kenny was hitting all times when he should, would we even notice how bad Canada is? I think you would, but it would obviously come in a different way. The telegraphing of the plays is still there, right? Now it's gotten a little bit better in the past few weeks. It's still not great. I still don't think they're using motion nearly enough in order to, number one, help break down what's going on prior to the snap. To tell Kenny what's going on, but then also to, use that motion to your advantage. Get a guy, get a corner. If he's in man, for example, the Packers did it really well on the first touchdown pass where Levi Wallace got lost. They brought the receiver in motion, they brought him back in, then he ran a corner. And that sometimes just that momentum can be the difference maker. You would still see certain deficiencies like that. It's just easy for whenever the plays aren't being made, when Kenny's missing throws, when Deontay drops a couple passes, those things just further, it just makes the problem worse. It just compounds everything.
And you don't want to have to force your receivers and your skill weapons to have to play mistake-free football. You as a quarterback have to minimize those, I guess, chances, if you want to call them that, for a drop pass or a fumble or in whatever it is, a bobbled pass that turns into an interception, whatever it might be, or missed assignment on the block. Like, you want your offense, this is standard protocol for any level of football. Like, you want your offense to be efficient enough to where you're not exhausting the playbook, number one. Number two, you're not giving the defense as many chances to make a play, so to speak, as maybe you want to. Now, Barbara says, what does across the middle mean for this offense? I can't tell if that's rhetorical or not, but going across the middle, to me,
could be anything.
To me, that means read 3 or 4. It doesn't mean read 1 or 2. I think part of it is a product of Kenny Pickett not seeing the middle of the field well, but also I think another part of it is Matt Canada's design and who's option 1, option 2, option 3 dump off, and not having Pat Freiermuth on the field. It changes a lot not having Pat Freiermuth on the field. I think people are losing sight of that having a tight end that's able to work intermediate like Freiermuth is. Like, Allen Robinson's good at working intermediate, but he's not a big enough body to put in the middle of the field on a linebacker, take a linebacker away. Neither is Rodney Williams or Connor Hayward. Darnell Washington is, but he still has to polish up a little bit in the passing game. That's the impact of missing Pat Freiermuth to me. So, and yeah, Kevin, I understand. They weren't necessarily throwing to Pat a lot before he was hurt.
That was a problem, yeah.
But again, that draws into question, what read is Pat on that given play? Is he read 1, 2, 3, or what's he supposed to be on that play? I think the case can be made that not enough plays are being drawn up to prioritize the middle of the field. The small hands are always going to be a problem seeing down the middle. Nice one, Darren.
That's funny.
That might be comment of the day.
That's
there.
funny. That's funny.
That might be comment of the day. Any intel on Amazon employee inside linebacker Tyler Murray? That's the intel. My morning, I spoke to Michael Walker this morning, the other inside linebacker, who Mike Tomlin spoke really highly of on Tuesday. And Michael Walker just basically said, they told me to be ready. They told me to be ready for a potential appearance on Sunday. Tyler Murray, I really don't have much background on him because there's not much background on him. That's about the only background, is that he was literally called off of the Amazon truck. His agent called him up and said, "Hey, I got you a tryout with the Steelers." And here he is in Pittsburgh. And I still don't think he's told his boss that he has a new job now. So, maybe some of those, pre-Thanksgiving packages that some of you might have ordered are getting in late now because your driver is, suiting up to play linebacker on this practice squad. But Michael Walker was the one that I spoke to in length today, mostly because, again, Mike Tomlin gave a pretty ringing endorsement for that guy, despite being, a practice squad guy that's floated around on a couple of teams this year.
Yeah. No, it's a really cool story. It really is. Anytime you hear stuff like that, I mean, I remember going back, you get the whole Kurt Warner story of bagging groceries and stuff like that. Anytime you kind of hear stories like that, it's really cool. So, yeah. Brent says first 50 minutes was pre-show. We didn't start until 3:15. Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I wish it worked like that. That just because I got here late doesn't mean we started late. That was think of it as Chris hosting his own show, and then I jump in as the special guest on that. Speaking of special guests, by the way, tonight 9:25 Eastern, I will be a guest on 93.7 The Fan to talk Pitt and Steelers. So. Cool. I will be on with one Donnie Football, if you know that name. Donnie Chedrick is bringing me on 9:25 tonight on 93.7 The Fan. So if you're local, 93.7 FM. If you're not, the Odyssey app is where you're going to want to go for that. So make sure you check that out. That's
awesome. Phil says this show is fast, dude. It flies by for us too. For real, it really does fly by.
It does.
It's kind of funny because sometimes I remember doing some college radio shows and it's okay, we got 30 minutes, we got 45 minutes, however long we were
2
doing.
hours.
Sometimes it was just all right, this is just I don't know how much more I can talk, and
sure. I think it's too fast, but also just enough. This is a podcast, keep in mind. We do a live show, but it also is branded as a podcast. And 30 minutes to me is quintessentially the perfect length for a podcast episode. Yeah. It's your drive home from work. It's getting up in the morning and getting ready. It's eating your breakfast or your lunch, or in this case, I guess it would be dinner. I think it's a good length. So we are in a good spot here. Darren says, I always seem to miss the middle of the show. Well, Darren, as a reminder, and I will do this every time I get a chance to, you could rewind and listen to the start of the Southside Beat in real time. You can do it right now if you really want to. So in real time, Darren might be missing this, but those that are sticking around in real time are going to hear it. Darren will hear it back on the playback because you can play back and rewind at any given time during the show. We're available 24/7, 365 on playback on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Play, on Spotify. Sticky B, that just means you get 30 minutes of us and 45 minutes of DK and Ramon. And then on your way back, you could play the final 15 to 20 minutes of Ramon and DK. And then keep your 70, and then keep the rest for the next day's Southside Beat. So we got you covered. It's math. It's about math, not about the necessarily scheduling right there.
All right. So final thought for today, Corey. I mean, a lot of stuff happened. Obviously, with the we talked before you came on. We did talk at length about obviously Deshaun Watson being out and TTR starting for the Browns. Obviously, we hit on Pat Freiermuth's return to practice. Hit on Kenny and what he talked about today. Final thought from you on the South Side.
Yeah, my final thought was going to be on Dorian Thompson-Robinson. This is the guy, don't forget, that got benched in the halftime in the Sun Bowl against Pitt. That was his last college start. Pitt beat UCLA in the Sun Bowl 37-35. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson did really well in the first half, but got benched in the second half. So Pitt fans, if you remember that name, that's where you remember it from. And look, if that Pitt defensive line could get to him, I can only imagine what TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith are thinking right now. Now, of course, the Browns offensive line is just
a little bit better.
Yeah, just
high
class. High class. I'm going to be intrigued to see Pat Fryermuth's status throughout the week. Injury report should be dropping typically within an hour by this point.
Yeah.
So we will see what the injury report has in store for us today. But I think it's going to be an interesting one. I'll just kind of leave it at that. So I will take us out of here, Chris. Yeah. Same deal tomorrow. Chris will we'll get you guys going around 3:00, and then I will jump in either like 10 or 15 after, as has become the norm. Tomorrow's going to be a little like fly by the seat of my pants because I'll have to do the show and get to Acrisure Stadium for Pitt Boston College. So that'll be a fun day tomorrow for me.
Oh yeah.
Dino Tomlin's coming to town. So
that's right, Dino Tomlin. I know what Mike Tomlin's going to be doing tomorrow night.
I wonder what Mike T is going to be doing tomorrow, other than a little more Browns prep. But he's Chris. I'm Corey. We are on to Thursday, that Coordinator Thursday, where we hear from Matt Canada and Terrell Austin. That should be a lot of fun. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody. We'll see you.